Chapter 7. The rain slammed against me the second I stepped out of Darwin's house. The wind howled, twisting the downpour into sheets that lashed my face as I made my way to the car. I was soaked within seconds, my breath coming in short bursts from the cold. I prayed Lila would be at the library. If she wasn't, I had no idea where else to find her. The weight of that uncertainty pressed down on me, heavy as the storm raging outside. We didn't have time to waste. That girl, whoever she was, didn't have time to wait. As I cranked the engine, the headlights flickered to life, cutting through the thick curtain of rain. I threw the car into gear and pulled out onto the road, the tires skidding slightly on the slick pavement. My wipers worked furiously, but it was barely enough to give me a clear view of the road ahead. Every pothole, every bend in the road felt sharper, more dangerous in the downpour. The storm made everything harder to see, harder to think, but I couldn't shake the thought of that girl's voice, trapped behind that door. She had to be real. She had to be. My thoughts kept spiraling back to the Draloks. How could they hold such a tight grip off the town? How many people have gone missing while they stayed in plain sight? I needed answers, and Lila was the only person who might know enough to help us figure it all out. When I finally pulled into the library's parking lot, the rain had eased just slightly, but the wind still whipped across the long stretch of asphalt. Only a few cars were scattered around, barely visible in the storm. The lot wasn't big, just long enough to accommodate a handful of visitors, but tonight it felt endless, with shadows stretching and shifting under the dim street lights. Then I saw her, a silhouette in the distance, moving toward a car, the outline of a woman fighting against the wind. Her movements hurried. I squinted through the rain, trying to make her out. Something about her seemed familiar, the way she moved, the cut of her coat. And then I saw it, the unmistakable flash of red hair blowing wild in the storm. Lila. I couldn't believe my luck, if you could call it that. She was just about to leave. I had to act fast. "Lila," I shouted, but the wind swallowed my voice. She didn't hear me. I ran across the lot, calling her name again. "Lila." Still nothing. I was closer now, almost at her car. "Lila, wait." This time, she turned, squinting through the rain, trying to make out who I was. As I got closer, her expression shifted, recognition dawning. "Ethan?" she called out, her voice barely carrying over the storm. "What are you doing here?" I skidded to a stop, panting, water dripping off my face. "You need to come with me, now." Her brow furrowed in confusion. "What? Why? What's going on?" "You were right," I said, trying to catch my breath, the urgency pushing my words out too fast. "About the Draloks. I went up there today to ask questions, and I heard something. A girl, crying. She was locked behind a door in the cellar. We need to get her out." Lila took a step back, her expression torn between disbelief and fear. "Wait, hold on. You're telling me the Draloks are keeping a child in their basement, and they just let you leave after that? How does that make sense?" Her question cut through the haze of adrenaline, making me pause. Why had Theron let me walk out of there? It gnawed at the back of my mind, but I didn't have time to untangle it now. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I know what I heard, Lila. That girl's in danger, and we need your help. We can't wait around and figure out why. Right now, we have to act." She crossed her arms, her gaze hardening as she thought it over. "Ethan, if this is true, if they are the ones behind all the disappearances, why would they let you leave after you hearing something like that?" I didn't have a good answer. I could see the hesitation in her eyes, the questions running through her mind, but I had no time for doubts. I can't explain that, I said, my voice low but firm. But whatever game they're playing, it doesn't change the fact that there's a girl trapped down there. You've studied them, you know more about them than anyone else. If anyone can help us figure out what to do next, it's you. Lena stayed quiet for a moment, the rain pounding between us, her eyes darting between me and the car. I could see the conflict in her. This wasn't some wild theory anymore. This was real, and it was dangerous, but we both knew it had always been dangerous. Finally, she sighed. Her shoulder was dropping slightly as she nodded. All right, let's go, but you'd better be right about this, Ethan. I didn't waste another second. We turned and hurried back to my car, the storm beating harder than ever. The drive back to Darwin's house felt quicker, though the storm hadn't let up. Lila sat in the passenger seat, silent, her face lit by the dashboard's glow. Every so often I'd glance at her, but she was deep in thought. Her presence was a strange comfort. Though I didn't know her well, I trusted her instincts. Maybe because she was the only one who had suspected the Draloks from the start. I parked outside Darwin's house and we hurried inside, shaking off the wet as we entered the dim-lit room, where Jack and Darwin were already seated. They looked up as we entered, and I made quick introductions. This is Lila, I said, stepping aside as she took a few hesitant steps forward. Lila, this is Jack and Darwin. Jack, rugged as ever, barely glanced at her before grunting. Darwin offered a small nod, his curiosity obvious as he sized her up, but Jack was less patient. Enough with the formalities, Jack growled, his tone sharp. What do you know about these Draloks? Anything that'll help us get that girl out? Lila paused, her lips parting like she was weighing her words. She wasn't one to be rattled easily, and I could see she was thinking carefully. She stepped closer to the table, her voice soft but clear. I've been looking into the Draloks for a while now, and there's something wrong about them. I can't explain it fully yet, but I know they're involved. They're not just an eccentric family with secrets. Darwin raised an eyebrow, shifting in his chair. And what exactly makes you so sure? Do you have any proof that can help us? She shook her head. No hard proof, just old stories from the town. Things people have whispered about them for years, and my own beliefs. Jack, who had been tapping his fingers on the table impatiently, stopped and leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. Wait. What do you mean, 4 years? I thought they moved here like 8 months ago. There was a brief pause, and Lila met his gaze, her expression unwavering. They didn't move here 8 months ago. Darwin's eyes darted toward Jack, then back to Lila. What are you talking about? He asked, incredulous. I've lived here 3 years. They were not here before. I would remember. They came here around 8 months ago, I'm sure of it. Jack shot a confused glance at me, his eyes asking this question without words. I sighed, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on all of us. Lila believes, I said slowly, that the Draloks have been coming back and forth to this town for over 100 years. Darwin blinked, his disbelief evident as his brow furrowed deeper. 100 years? He almost laughed at the absurdity. The same family? That's ridiculous. Jack shook his head, his frustration boiling over. What the hell are you talking about? They've been here for months. I've lived in this hellhole for 6.5 years, and never heard of them since they arrived here like 8 months back. Lila remained calm under the scrutiny, her voice steady as she continued. I've lived in this town my whole life. Grew up hearing stories of a strange family that lived on the hill, I first saw them when I was 8, old enough to remember those same sickly, gaunt faces. Then again about a decade later, the same elderly man, the same children. Like time had passed over the rest of us and simply left them behind. And now they're here again. Darwin sat up straighter, his confusion mounting. So you're saying they don't age? Exactly, Lila said, glancing around the room. Jack scoffed, his disbelief turning into frustration. And you're telling me the whole town just doesn't notice this? That no one has caught on? Lila shook her head slowly. People don't speak up because most don't remember, she said. The younger generation, the ones who've moved here in the last decade or so, they wouldn't know. They've never been around long enough to notice anything strange. And those who have lived here longer, they forget. It's like the Draloks slip in and out of existence so subtly that memories just fade, or they get rewritten. There's no urgency in remembering them because they disappear just as quietly as they arrive. The room fell into an uneasy silence, the weight of her words settling over us all. Jack rubbed the back of his neck, pacing in a small circle. He stopped suddenly, turning to face Lila. So what are you saying then? Jack challenged. That they're, what? Ghosts? Aliens? Do you even understand how insane you sound? I'm not saying I know exactly what they are, Lana shot back, her calm beginning to fray. But what I do know is that they're not normal people. They've been here for generations, and people have been going missing and being killed just as long. You can choose not to believe me, but the facts are there. Darwin glanced at me, then back at Jack, clearly trying to make sense of it all. This is insane, he muttered. How do you even prove something like that? You can't, Lila admitted, her eyes narrowing. At least, not easily. But it doesn't change the fact that there is something unnaturally wrong with them, and they're connected to the disappearances and killings. They have to be. Jack threw his hands in the air, his frustration bubbling over. I don't care if they're little green fuckers with big black eyes or the boogeyman, he snapped, standing up abruptly. What matters is that there's a young girl trapped beneath that house, and we're sitting here wasting our time telling ghost stories or philosophizing what planet they're from. We need a plan to get her out, now. I could see Darwin nodding in agreement, though he still looked troubled by Lila's claims. The disbelief lingered in his eyes, but there was a grim acceptance too. He knew we couldn't afford to wait any longer. He's right, I said quietly, my voice cutting through the rising tension. Whether they are what Lila says or not, we need to get that girl out of there. Lila remained quiet, but I could see the determination in her eyes. Jack was pacing again, restless. Darwin was leaning forward, thinking, his fingers tracing the grain at the table. As the room settled into silence, Jack sat back, the creaking of his chair loud against the storm still raging outside, glancing at each of us before speaking. So, what are we going to do then? His question hung in the air, a blunt but necessary acknowledgement of the growing tension. I glanced at Lila, hoping for anything, some insight, some flaw we hadn't thought of yet. Do you know anything about them? Anything that could help us get in? Maybe something we've missed, some weakness or some pattern we can use. Lila's eyes darted to the floor as she thought, her hands rubbing her arms as though she could ward off the chill that settled over all of us. After a few moments, she spoke, her voice hesitant at first. Well, there is something. I can't say it's concrete, but I've noticed it over time. They never seem to be home after the sun has gone down. Jack leaned forward, confusion knotting his brow. What do you mean by that? Lila continued. I know it sounds strange, but I've been keeping an eye on their house, and I started noticing a pattern. I'd drive by their place at night, More than once. It was partly just me trying to prove to myself that the stories weren't true, but they never seemed to be there. And not just occasionally. Never. All the lights are always off. There would never be any sign of them. I even knocked once, thinking I was just being paranoid, but no one answered. Darwin leaned in, intrigued. How often did you do this? Lila shrugs, her voice firm now. Enough to be sure. Or I've been doing it for months since they arrived. No matter what time I check, after the sun has gone down, the place just falls silent. Darwin frowned, clearly skeptical. That's odd. But how does that prove anything? People go out at night all the time. Lila shook her head, her expression growing more intense. That's just it. I started asking around, trying to see if anyone had seen them at night, at bars, restaurants, events. And no one ever does. No one ever sees them after dark, anywhere in town. A long pause followed as each of us tried to piece it all together. Lila's theory was hard to believe, but then again, everything about this family seemed to defy logic. My mind raced through the possibilities, wondering if this could actually be our chance. Lila glanced between us, gauging our reactions. What I'm trying to say is that it might be our only chance. If they're not there after dark, it could give us the time we need to get in, find the girl, and get out before they return. The room fell into another thick silence. I could see Jack's jaw clench, his mind turning over the options. Darwin sat there, staring blankly at the table, deep in thoughts. Finally, Jack stood up abruptly, his eyes locking on all of us. Well, that settles it, he said, his voice hard, final. We'll leave after sundown. If they're really not home after dark, then that's when we make our move. The weight of those words hit me like a punch to the gut. Nightfall. It felt so final. The storm outside pounded against the house, relentless, like it was echoing what we were about to face. I glanced around the room. Darwin nodded slowly, leaning forward, elbows resting on the table, his face aligned with concern but set in agreement. Lila, standing near the door, gave me a nod too, though hers seemed heavier, more hesitant. The reality was sinking in for all of us. But the truth was, there was no other choice. We had to try. That's it then, I said, my voice quieter than before. We wait until nightfall. I turned to the window, my body feeling heavier with every step. The rain lashed against the glass, the wind howling like some wild animal outside, and I could see the trees bending in the storm. It was chaos out there, nature tearing itself apart. And yet, the violence of it all seemed to mirror what I was feeling inside. I stared out into the darkness, trying to focus, trying to keep my thoughts from spinning out of control. But there was this sense, this chill that crept into my bones. It was the feeling you get just before something terrible happens, when the world seems to hold its breath, and you know, somehow, you just know, that things are about to go wrong. The room was quiet now, except for the storm. The ticking of the clock felt louder than ever, each second dragging us closer to whatever awaited us in that house. My gut twisted as I thought about the Draloks. Lila's words about them not being human echoed in my mind, and the way she'd said it, like she wasn't just guessing, like she knew. And what if she was right? What if we weren't just walking into danger, but into something far worse than we could ever imagine? I could feel the suffocating tension in the room. Jack was sitting by the window now, his hands together and muttering something under his breath. He was staring out into the storm, but I could tell he wasn't seeing the rain or the trees bending beneath the wind. He was somewhere else, somewhere far darker. Everyone in the room knew what was really driving him. Sure, he wanted to save that girl. We all did. But for Jack, There was something more at stake. Something that gnawed at him every second. Something that had stripped him of everything that once resembled a life. His son. That day he was taken from him and broken something inside Jack. He was still standing, still breathing, but something had died along with the hope of ever seeing his son again. But I knew Jack wasn't the type to give up. Getting into that house, into that damn cellar, wasn't just about saving a girl he didn't know. It was about finding out what had happened to his boy. He hadn't said it outright, not in so many words, but we all knew. The pain had never left him. It sat just behind his eyes, in every weary glance he gave, in the way his fists clenched at the mention of the Draloks. He had nothing to lose. That was the truth of it. His career, his peace, everything had crumbled the moment his son was taken from him. All that remained was the burning need to know. That cellar wasn't just a part of this mission for him. It was his last hope. His final chance to put the pieces of his shattered life back together, or at least to find something to cling to in the wreckage. I swallowed hard and forced myself to focus. We were all in. There was no going back now. But something in the back of my mind nagged at me, a creeping doubt, a whisper that warned we didn't know the full picture. I pushed it down. We had a plan, and we had each other. That had to be enough. Nightfall couldn't come soon enough. But deep down, I wondered if we were really ready for what would follow.